If you would like to work directly with Dr. Kole to maximize your sleep quality with a comprehensive sleep coaching program, or if you're concerned that you have sleep apnea, or simply just want a second opinion consultation, she's now available to see patients in New Jersey, New York, California, and Georgia, with more states coming soon. Please visit oak.care/sleep for a complete list of telemedicine services with transparent pricing. You deserve rapid access to quality sleep care with a physician you can trust to have your back every step of the way on your journey to better sleep.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alison Kole, sleep medicine specialist and bona fide chronic insomniac. Welcome to the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. Remember, knowledge is empowerment, and if applied correctly, it can help you biohack your way to a better night of sleep, just like I did. Hello and welcome to the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alison Kole. I am joined with me. Okay, let me restart. Hello and welcome to the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alison Kole, and I am here with Joselyne John. I want to preface this episode by saying that this is going to be part one. We got so into our conversation that what ended up happening was we were running way past our time. So this first part, we're going to be talking about shift work, but specifically what's so dangerous about it, what we know about it, and just sort of the baseline science aspects of it so you can understand where our tips come from. And the tips are going to be in part two. So stick around next week because there we're going to go to what you can do to improve your experience as a shift worker. So Joselyne John happens to be an author, and she has written the book Sleep Tight. She also has her own sleep coaching program, and it's called sleepishealth.com. And you can go to her website and you can work with her if you'd like. She is currently a trained registered nurse, and she trained in Canada, but she had a very interesting journey to this point. So Joselyne, please share. I really think it's important. I know we're going to be sprinkling some stories and your experiences throughout, but people really need to hear your story. I mean, literally, I'm like crying, talking to you, hearing about your journey. And it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. It's deeply, deeply moving. So please share with everyone how you got to be in front of me, chatting about your book, chatting about your program, and chatting about shift work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alison, for having me, and also everyone for listening and being here with us. We don't take your presence for granted. So how I ended up here, I'm originally from Burundi. So it's a small country in Central Africa. And I was raised by the best parents, in my opinion. That's how I turned out this way. Believe it or not, I was actually raised on cow milk because my mom couldn't breastfeed. So it's really interesting. That's a joke to open the whole story with, because, we read in textbook, don't give, we're not supposed to give infants, cow milk. But here I am. I turned out fine, but not to encourage it, but just to say how miraculous, my journey has been in a lot of ways. So Burundi has experienced civil war earlier on, back in 1994. So my parents moved to Rwanda, and then we moved to Malawi, to Tanzania first, and then we moved to Malawi. That all being said, we've lived in refugee camps pretty much for me, for most of my childhood, and then until I was maybe 20, 21. So in the refugee camp Malawi, that's where I received a prestigious scholarship to come and study in Canada. So I came as a permanent resident to study and live in Canada. So, it's been interesting just in terms of stories of survival, because, we seek jobs so we can survive. And I know a lot of people who are listening right now, they are maybe working 2 jobs or 3 jobs, because there's a lot we have to do to survive. So I know a lot about survival through those transitions that I've had to have. living in refugee camps, moving country to country to country. So when I came to Canada on this prestigious scholarship, I was just me, just by myself, integrating into the Canadian system, the Canadian school system. So so my journey began there, and initially I did health sciences. So I'm very passionate about health promotion, empowering ourselves and our patients and our clients to take control of their own health using lifestyle medicine, the things that we can do. And then I actually went into nursing school after I have volunteered at the hospital, because after I finished my first degree, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I challenged myself to actually just find out instead of deciding it. So I volunteered in the hospital, and I really enjoyed how nurses spend a lot of time with the patients and those interactions, because I'm a very relational person. And so I really love that my work involves talking to people. I also have a lot of passion for science. But anyhow, how I end up in front of you is that as soon as I finished nursing school, I was very excited that my life would change forever, because they told us in nursing school, probably for you too, Dr. Alison, probably someone told you when you finish medical school, life will be better, because all we did was study. But then now I was looking forward to this life where I can finally have my life back. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case for me, because I work night shifts. Here we used to have 2 days nights and 2 days days. And on my days off, which was a block of 4 days, I was miserable. I wasn't able to sleep. I was always tired. I didn't participate in the things that I enjoyed. All the classic symptoms of sleep deprivation that just eating junk food, which we will discuss how sleep deprivation affects all this, but that's how. So I ended up realizing that there was like a better life than go and invest and serve others and come to my days off and feel miserable and unfulfilled. So I decided that I needed to look into it. I understood that the problem wasn't my career, because I enjoyed servicing my clients, my patients, and having spent a long time deciding what I wanted to do, I was very sure that nursing is what I enjoyed. All my practicums, all my trainings, I enjoyed every part of the journey. So I knew that it's just that I needed to readjust my lifestyle to be able to fill my cup, because we've all heard you can't really give from an empty cup. So I started just reading the literature about sleep. What can I do? But interestingly, I ran into a lot of research showing the danger of sleep deprivation, showing how sleep deprivation is impairing cognitive function at a more acute, immediate level, where we have worsened decision-making power, increased risk of accidents, which I had already seen in my own life. I have bumped my car into the curb so many times. So anyways, I started seeing all these credible research impact on the heart, increasing risk for cardiovascular disease and heart attacks, impact on risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and also weakened immune system. I was so concerned. I realized, oh my goodness, night shifts creates all these consequences, but nobody told me about it. How come we didn't learn about this in nursing school? And then I thought, okay, this is great. I know the consequences. How can I fix it? So you know how when we read peer-reviewed literature, usually we don't always have, step by step. Of course, we know some of them do, but not always. So I went and I got certified in sleep science, because I really wanted to understand more about how the sleep cycle works, all the sleep stages. And after that, the sleep science certification felt like it was more all around the behaviors you can implement to promote sleep. But I've done all that, and I still had trouble sleeping, I would sleep at most 4 hours per night. And then my sleep would be fragmented here and there, just napping here, napping there. Then I decided I wanted to look deeper. So I went and did a holistic sleep training, which looks at how hormones, exercise, nutrition, gut health, thyroid health, lifestyle all affect sleep. So I will just pause here. That's pretty much kind of in a nutshell how I end up here. And then authoring my book is really just an extension of supporting others. Because when I wrote this book, I really wanted a book that I wish I had when I was going through what I was going through. It's pretty much a marriage between sleep science and storytelling, because I get to share with you the journey, but also sharing the sleep science. But I also think that this book is a marriage between like optimal health and self-growth or success, because sometimes and often we separate success and progress and self-growth with optimal health, because we say, I know exactly what I want to do. I really want to succeed. I want to become so and so. I'm going to put all I can. I can do it. I can do it. And then you just go. You forget that the success is connected to optimal health. So we neglect the other part, the other fuel that is supposed to fuel our success. This is why the overall message in this book and what I promote is you were born to thrive. And we'll talk about it. I'll hopefully give you tips and strategies that can help you strive while doing night shifts.
There's so much to unpack here in what you're saying. And it's one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you, because yes, this is a podcast about sleep, and sleep really, and I really believe it is when your sleep starts going awry, it's a really sensitive and early marker that something is missing. What is it? What needs to be fixed? It's like an early indicator that things are off, be they psychological, be they physical, combination of the two. And the real parallel is that drive, you having been a person growing up in Burundi and having to leave your home and grow up in refugee camps, and still yet had such positive parents who instilled in you that attitude, that work hard ethic, having come from a mom who, immigrated to the United States to be a nurse here in the United States from South Korea, and kind of being the daughter who, as an only child, I know have a lot of siblings, there was that sense of like, I worked hard. I came here, with hardly any money in my pocket. I've made it. It wasn't easy. There were challenges, and my parents both emphasized, just like you mentioned, that your parents emphasized the importance of education, seeing outside of your current condition and looking to a bigger goal. And when you use the term surviving, it really is sort of this ongoing survival mode. Like, I went to a really nice grammar school where I was filled with kids who had a little bit more than I did. And it was like, oh, well, maybe I can have that more. Maybe I can live the American dream. It sounds like these kids are doing it. And, it was just a nice background because the kids I went to school with were just good, wholesome kids. So, but it also was a motivator for me. I was sitting there and I was like, what do I have to do next to make it happen? And it really became this almost constant, like, internal stress that I put upon myself. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get to that next task. And you don't have to be in healthcare for that to still be your goal, right? I'm going to get through nursing school. I'm going to get through med school. I'm going to get through business program, or whatever it is. I'm going to get that, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to get my business to be successful. There's so many examples of it. And often what gets thrown to the wayside is like, well, I have to survive this next step because I will be happy when. This will be better when. Oh, I'll get more sleep when I'm attending. Newsflash, not true, especially if you go into Palm Crit. Cardiology, GI, you name it. We're all, we work really, really hard and don't have a lot of time to ourselves. And there seems to be, just in a systems level, a lack of appreciation not only in the healthcare system, but I think it's just sort of part of the culture, depending on what workplace you belong to. I think it's becoming more mainstream to really focus on the importance of work-life balance. I've certainly found that with the organization that I work with now. But not everybody sort of still holds on to that philosophy. And your mission to help people thrive instead of just survive, I love that, because I finally feel like I had perceived messages, and I will say that's my perception of what other people are telling me, right? So I take ownership of what I have perceived is going on in my life. But I have been told, in my career, well, what are you going to do next? What do you think you can do? Like, almost like I felt like my unhappiness was being challenged. Like, well, this is what you signed up for. This is the way it is. This is the way it should be. And being able to liberate myself from that myopic viewpoint has been life-changing. And you basically took a situation where your normal body clock was not aligned to the night shift and said, okay, it's clearly affecting me. I clearly recognize it. How can I make it better? So as we go through this, I want to just get some teaching points out of the way so everybody can follow along with what we're saying. Jocelyn's experience is really with night shift work. And I can say from my personal experience, definitely what contributed to me feeling overwhelmed and burned out and wanting to kind of transition my career. And I think, Jocelyn, we talked about this as well for you, was that difficulty with flip-flopping your schedule. I am not a night shift person. It was something that didn't really bug me when I was in my 20s. Again, because I was in survival mode. If I couldn't sleep, which I couldn't, I would just do another shift. I'd be like, well, I'm not sleeping anyway. I may as well become a better physician, a better clinician. Let me just go and take that extra shift at the hospital, make a little money on the side, kind of a thing. So that's how I functioned and operated. And then you become an adult and you're like, well, obviously in your 20s, you're technically an adult. But I feel like my maturity level occurred a little bit later when I was fully adulting and becoming a mom and running a sleep program and doing all those things. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm now have regimented my schedule because I've gotten all the sleep knowledge and I know it's really good to have a routine. And you get into that habit of developing that routine, which is a constant shift, especially when you're a new parent and you're not quite sure what you're doing, which was my situation. And then all of a sudden you're thrust into this environment where you're like, whoa, this is like a throwback to my 20s and residency. I don't know that I can really handle this anymore. And I fell into the same pattern. All of the things that we're taught about for folks that have difficulty with insomnia, which is what I definitely suffered with for many, many years, is that concept of creating the nighttime ritual, the regular morning routine, the regular wake up morning, all the things that we talk about in cognitive behavioral therapy. So a lot of that stuff kind of goes out the window when you're talking about having to be on a shift. So let's kind of define shift work. We stated in your experience and my experience, it was really night shift work, having to go in at night when everybody else is sleeping and you've got to be awake and alert, and you have to do that for however long your shift may be, 8 to 12 hours, depending on, where you're working. And then you're supposed to go home and you're supposed to rest and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for whatever, work is thrown your way the following day. And that really didn't work for me. But there's other forms of shift work too. And it kind of depends on our natural internal body clock, which is our circadian rhythm. So I would describe myself now, I wouldn't say it was in my 20s, which is very common, or my teens, which is very common, which is I was more of, I'll stay up a little bit later. I'd sleep in a little bit later, right? That delayed sleep phase that's so natural in that age group. But now in my 40s, I really do feel that I'm like, no, I'm definitely more of a morning person. If I had to say I'm most productive, it's going to be in the morning. Would you describe yourself as well as being more of a morning person?
Absolutely. I'm an early bird. There's all these sleep types, lions, bears. Yeah, I'm definitely the early bird too. I go to bed early, and then I wake up early. And yeah, I actually did a video about that, the sleep types and different benefits. Obviously, when we go to bed early, we are catching, longer deep sleep episodes, and we're getting the best out of our sleep investment, I think.
And the issue is that not everybody's built the same. We all have different timekeepers in our brain. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is located in the hypothalamus, which is part of our brain, really helps to kind of regulate our internal clock. And some people have like a slightly longer clock, and they may kind of perceive they have more energy a little bit later, and that can persist. So they may be more of the night owl type person. They may want to be up a little bit later and sleep in a little bit later. And for some of those folks, a night shift may not be that big a deal because it's matching what their internal body clock does. And for them, if I were to say, great, you're a night owl, guess what? Your shift starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. So now you have to be up at 6 to do everything and then get to work and that's very difficult for them. That is a form of shift work for them. And then people who just generally have a normal cycle, or just generally, fall asleep at a sort of when I say normal, I'm not classifying anybody as normal or abnormal, but I mean just what the majority of folks do, where they generally feel tired around a decent time, let's say 10-ish or so, and then they are able to wake up 7, 8-ish. It's not that big a deal, varying that clock a bit. The bottom line is that if they are able to do the quote 9 to 5 job, okay, that's ideal for them. But even they may struggle if their job requires them to be up at 3 a.m. And some early shifts are quite early. And if you, I don't know if they still do this or not, but my father worked for the United States Postal Service. So I know you're in Canada, but the United States Postal Service back in the day, in its heyday, because it's pared down significantly over the years, they ran 3 shifts. So they had a morning, and then they had an afternoon crew, and there's a little bit of overlap, and then they had an evening crew. And I can say my dad was more of the delayed sleep phase type, who's definitely more of a night owl. And he actually, he never kept a great healthy schedule, I will have to say, because he definitely was chronically sleep deprived on his days that he had to go in early. But it was also the, most preferred shift. And for some reason, he didn't seem to mind that he had to do that. But I actually think he did better when he did more of the evening shift. So the bottom line is that shift work can look different for different people depending on that biologic clock. The other reason that we sleep, in addition to just our biologic clock being what it is, we all need sleep, by the way, guys. Like, you're not human if you don't need sleep, period. We cannot survive without sleep. Right? And we're talking about optimal sleep, but just any sleep. You need it. It's just our bodies want it. So the longer that we are awake for a period of time, the more likely we are to want to go to sleep. So that's accumulation of sleep debt. Can we mess around with that? Heck yes. Caffeine, stress, etc., right? But that's sort of like, if we had to say the 2 reasons why we even sleep would be, we're up long enough that we've accumulated that desire to fall asleep. And then the second is sort of that circadian rhythm, that drive. And it is very heavily influenced by things like light. So, and obviously when our melatonin is released naturally in our body, these things really help to kind of regulate that. So just so you keep into the context what we're talking about, I don't want to focus all of this applies not only to night shift workers, but also to people who just are very asynchronous with where they need to be during the day. So you had actually touched on many amazing points about how sleep deprivation negatively impacts the body. And these points are actually very similar to why shift work may impact the body. Can you share with folks some of the issues related to shift work and why we should even care about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So shift work is basically another way of thinking circadian rhythm disruption. And like Dr. Alison is saying, we have that internal clock. So now shift work is actually changing that rhythm. Now it's no longer natural. And that is causing a lot of problems for the body because, like Dr. Alison was saying, we are actually created on the basis of rest. And we are doing that following that internal clock. So there are specific internal processes that happen during the day, and some that happen during the evening and the night, separate hormones for the day, separate hormones for the night. That's why rejuvenation naturally was meant to happen in the evening. In other words, the optimal rejuvenation is happening in the evening, and the rejuvenation is literally rejuvenating you head to toe. So now, when we miss out on that rejuvenation, this is the consequences of shift work, the consequences of actually staying up. So let's just break it down. And I like head to toe because I'm a nurse. I always use head to toe. So impact on the brain, for example, a lack of sleep is going to impair cognitive function, reducing the decision-making power. It's increasing risk for accidents. And mainly it's because lack of sleep is actually increasing reaction time. For example, if something falls down, sorry for the noise, my reaction time is longer when I'm sleep deprived, meaning it will take me time to even know that something has dropped. So that's dangerous when it comes to operating machinery or doing things that require focus, such as driving. And another thing that happens when sleep deprived, the brain is actually going to have these mini micro sleeps. It's not something that we recognize as sleep. We won't know, but actually neurologically, the brain is like sleeping for a few seconds at a time. That makes a huge difference. If it's just a matter of you're cutting something, and a few seconds will influence whether you cut yourself or not. Another big problem is research has shown that just staying up for 19 hours is going to make the brain function similar to being legally drunk. So in other words, when we're sleep deprived, the brain is not functioning very well. These cognitive impairments have been documented. Objectively speaking, it doesn't matter how smart we are. It's just that sleep deprivation is actually making our brain just not work properly. And we look at also creativity and problem solving. I looked at research that showed that actually when you're sleep deprived, your creative insights are reduced by 33%. So you're holding yourself back in terms of your potential and your brain power and how smart you are. Basically, sleep deprivation is making you dumb. That's it. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I don't know how else to say it because I'm a very direct person. That's it. But then knowing that, hey, I'm not dumb. It's just I'm sleep deprived. Giving yourself that compassion. So when it comes to night shift, it's really important to give yourself grace and maybe take a nap. We'll talk about napping strategically, or maybe calling someone to drop you off and things like that. And another big thing I really want to mention is that when we don't sleep, we are losing out on the brain cleaning, and that means that toxins are actually building up in the brain. And research has shown that some of these toxins, some of them are called beta amyloids, and when they accumulate, the more beta amyloids proteins you have, the higher the likelihood and the chance of developing Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And so then, while it's normal that we will develop these toxins, the sleep is there to help us clean them out so that they don't accumulate and cause problems. So that's just a nutshell for the brain. And then, cardiovascularly, when you think about it, we are always breathing and the heart is always pumping blood. So when does the heart rest? It's when we actually sleep. And this is why one of the characteristics of sleep stages, like stage 1, stage 2, you see that when you're ready to sleep, your heart rate is going to decrease. So is your blood pressure, your breathing is coming down, except for in REM sleep when it starts to increase again. But initially, there's this ability and chance for the cardiovascular, all the organs to rejuvenate. So it's really, really important that research has shown that sleep deprivation is actually increasing the risk of cardiovascular disease and heart attacks. So it's so important. And another unfortunate consequence of sleep deprivation is actually increased chance of type 2 diabetes, which connects back to cardiovascular. So it's almost, when I was looking at it, so what happens is when we're sleep deprived, also we have impaired glucose metabolism. Okay. And we also have insulin resistance, also decreased insulin production. So here you are, you could be eating your food, but you just don't have the ability to metabolize the sugar you eat as you would normally do. And this works hand in hand with changes in appetite as well, because when we're sleep deprived, what happens is, like I said, we have hormones that have to work during the day and during the night. Now hormones are really mixed up, so you have increased ghrelin levels, which is the hormone that keeps you hungry, and then you have decreased leptin levels, which is the hormone that reminds you that you're full. So you're constantly craving to eat. Unfortunately, research shows that when we are sleep deprived, we are craving unhealthy, high refined, high sugary foods. And I looked at research that showed that sleep deprivation is causing you to eat up to 500 extra empty calories. And so when you look at this, so you are craving sugar, unhealthy food, but also your glucose metabolism is impaired. So now you have this accumulation of sugar in your blood, but unfortunately, the body is not ready, is not capable of actually keeping your sugar as it would. But essentially, when we eat, it's either we use the energy or we store the energy. So if we can store sugar, now we have this accumulation of sugar in our bloodstream. That's pretty much the definition of type 2 diabetes. And then when we have this like high accumulation of blood sugar in our bloodstream, that's also contributing to high blood pressure. So this is where you have this interlink between these, it's almost a double risk for cardiovascular disease, because sleep deprivation is causing both, like direct impact on blood pressure, but also indirect impact on blood pressure through impaired blood sugar use. So this is really important. But also I really want to mention, very important, the impact on the immune system. This is so important, because sleep deprivation is reducing, like with just one night of sleep deprivation can reduce natural killer cells by 70%. So natural killer cells, they're the cells of our innate immune system. We have innate and adaptive immune system. So natural killer cells are pretty much the first to go, like they're kind of our first defense. So yeah, 70% reduction in natural killer cells is quite a lot. I was so shocked looking at this research, and this is why you will see that when you sleep well, you feel better in the morning, or when you have those short nights, like 3 to 4 hours, you wake up feeling congested, like you're like, oh, am I developing a cough? It's just because you just didn't have enough chance for the immune system to rejuvenate. Also, yes.
What I was going to say is that, guys, if you want to check out season 1, I did an episode on sleep and the immune system with Dr. Erica Kaufman, and it is amazing. So if you want to hear more about its effects on the immune system, just refer back to season 1. It is there for you. Thanks, Jocelyn, for that.
Yeah, in a nutshell, the sleep is really rejuvenating. Like I said, I'm going head to toe, but immune system is important for our gut health as well. And also when it comes to energy, to exercise and uplifting our mood, deep sleep is so important for rejuvenating us, because how are we going to participate in what we enjoy if we didn't rejuvenate? That's exactly what happened to me, Dr. Alison. I thought I had time off, but no energy to do anything. So renewing your energy, your vitality, I think improved energy is something everybody is always saying, oh, I wish I had more energy. Basically, sleep is going to give you more energy. So that's just in a nutshell. But the impact on mental health is also paramount, because sleep deprivation is going to worsen anxiety. Because anxiety is a gift we've been given to just be a little anxious when something is wrong. But unfortunately, when we're sleep deprived, now anxiety is going to augment, and you'll be anxious in situations where you're not supposed to be anxious. Sleep deprivation has been shown to make you catastrophize. So simple problem becomes a big problem. Kids annoying you becomes, oh my God, these kids are crazy, like everything. And we are tempted every day. We are tempted, these things that annoy us. So we wish that we can be calm and deal with them, but sleep deprivation is going to make us even much more irritated, and catastrophize everything, which is really terrible for mental health. So this is just in a nutshell, but the risk for disease is just what concerns me, because we have the power to prevent this disease, because some people have been born with genetic predisposition to certain disease. But for us, if we don't have this risk yet, we can prevent this. And so that's why I'm really excited to get into the tips on how people can protect themselves and thrive.
This was a perfect segue. Thank you so much. So for you guys listening, in summary, really what we have is that shift work is incredibly common, by the way. About 17% of at least the US population engages in some form of shift work as part of what they need to do to, pay their bills and live. And a third of those patients, a third of those shift workers really do struggle with difficulty with their sleep, or what we call insomnia. And that leads us to feel like we can't perform our best when we're at work. It leads us to have difficulty managing some of the feelings that come up. You mentioned the stress and the anxiety, and it gets our amygdala over firing and gets us overreactionary to things, as you said, catastrophizing. It makes us at increased risk for coronary artery disease, diabetes. We don't eat our best, and so we gain weight. So obesity is more common, hypertension, and even certain types of cancers are linked to shift work. So there are a lot of reasons why it is one of those things that it's a necessary form of employment. So what we need to then focus on is, how the heck do we manage it? So without further ado, what we're going to do is say, this was a really decent episode. I am going to clip it here, because next week we are going to resume, and it's going to be all about how we manage shift work. What tips do we have? So the first part's really more of an education in the background, and then I'm going to take a break here, and then we're going to resume on our tips. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you feel that you are growing, you're more knowledgeable, you're feeling empowered about your sleep, that is the purpose. So please, please take the time to like and review the podcast, share it amongst your friends and family. Please follow me. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I am there as well. My handle on Instagram and TikTok is AskTheSleepMD. And you can also go to my website, AskTheSleepMD.com, for more information about each of these episodes. We will be sharing with you cited articles that you can actually refer to and read yourself if you like, and lots of juicy tidbits about how to sleep better. Thank you. This podcast would not be possible without the support of Mr. Joey Salvia, who is my producer, and Adrian Pederath, my creative director. Disclaimer. The statements made on this podcast have not been evaluated by the U.S. Food or Drug Administration. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. The information provided by this podcast should not be used as individual medical advice. While I am a practicing sleep provider, I am not your sleep provider. You should always consult with your personal healthcare provider for individual recommendations and treatment.